about today is a manager versus a leader. And we're gonna, one thing we always promise is that you're gonna have tips and actions and ideas that you can walk away with to take action on. And then at the end of this, there is a little surprise gift that we're gonna talk about, and we'll talk about it throughout our presentation today.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is we're gonna do this a little different because it's a small group. We really want you engaged we want you to be engaged and ask questions and talk about a little bit about what's going on in your world. So
rather than saving the questions for the end, just unmute yourself and ask us a question, and we'll talk about it right then, because we have a very small group and we'd like to have it interactive if we can.
I agreed. Exactly. Because it's that way, we're going to be like asking you questions along the way.
So here's a question for you guys. Does anybody have an idea what the cost of losing an employee is? What does it cost you if you lose one employee?
Are you looking for a percent from them?
Yeah. Or a dollar amount.
Anything.
What do you think it costs?
I'm hearing crickets, Pete. I don't think people know.
Okay.
So I think they need to give the answer.
Peg and I did a radio show a while back, and we did a little research ahead of time, and we found two things from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that said, on average, in the United States, if you lose an hourly employee, it costs you about 20% of their annual salary. So if you got a $40,000 a year person, $20 an hour person, it's going to cost you $8,000 for your time and the training and the mistakes they make or whatever it is. That's what's going to cost you. If it's a salaried employee, it's 25 to 30% generally of their annual pay. So if you lose one person.
And so the reason we're telling you this, and it's really interesting because we talk about this to our managers and our leaders, is how important it is what we're talking about today, because we're talking about a manager versus a leader and the different roles that happen, but also we're talking about how to be better at both. Wouldn't that be good?
Yep.
But by a show of hands, I know you guys have your cameras off. How many people already know us? Does anybody not know us? Did you guys, you know us, Trish knows? Okay, so I think just introducing ourselves would be repetitive. So we're going to skip that and move on to the meat and potatoes, if that's okay. Okay. All righty. Thanks, guys.
Make everybody hungry.
And you guys can leave your
yeah, leave your cameras on.
Yeah, if you want. Yeah. So did we talk? Yeah, we talked about this last time.
We did.
Okay. So this is one of my favorite ones. I'm not bossy. I have
now,
skills.
Was that you when you were a child?
It was. That's why I think I like it.
I mean, that's actually you.
Yeah. So I love the idea of the cost of retention. So one thing, have you guys ever listened to or watched any of the Simon Sinek videos? Raise your hand if you have.
Who is that?
Simon Sinek. His last name is spelled S-I-N-E-K. And if you go to YouTube, he has quite a few videos on there. Some of his leadership videos are excellent. We're going to show you one.
Yes, they're outstanding. I mean, he has some that's like, he's really known for what's your why in getting at that. But we picked this 3-minute video. This is the only video we're playing today. And we want you to really, because we're going to talk about it afterwards. So what I want you to do, it's going to be a discussion of this video afterwards. So write down a couple points that you want to bring up afterwards so that we can discuss it after this 3 minutes. All right.
There are two things that I think that great leaders need to have: empathy and perspective. And I think these things are very often forgotten. Leaders are so often so concerned about their status or their position in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge. And I don't think people realize this, and I don't think people train for this. When we're junior, our only responsibility is to be good at our jobs. That's all that we really have to do. And some people actually go get advanced educations so that they can be really good at their jobs, accountants or whatever, right? And you show up and you work hard, and the company will give us tons and tons of training how to do our jobs. They'll show us how to use the software. They'll send us away for a few days to get trained in whatever it is that we're doing for the company. And then they expect us to go be good at our jobs. And that's what we do. We work very hard. And if you're good at your job, they'll promote you. And at some point, you'll get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody shows us how to do that. And that's why we get managers and not leaders. because the reason our managers are micromanaging us is because they actually do know how to do the job better than us. That's what got them promoted. Really what we have to do is go through a transition. Some people make it quickly, some people make it slowly, and unfortunately some people will never make that transition at all. Which is we have to go through this transition of being responsible for the job and then turning into somebody who's now responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. And as I said before, one of the great things that is lacking in most of our companies is that they are not teaching us how to lead. And leadership is a skill like any other. It is a practicable, learnable skill. And it is something that you work on. It's like a muscle. If you practice it all the days, you will get good at it and you will become a strong leader. If you stop practicing, you will become a weak leader. Like parenting, everyone has the capacity to be a parent. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent, and doesn't mean everybody should be a parent. Leadership is the same. We all have the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean everybody should be a leader, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And the reason is because it comes at great personal sacrifice. Remember, you're not in charge, you're responsible for those in your charge. That means things like when everything goes right, you have to give away all the credit. And when everything goes wrong, you have to take all the responsibility. That sucks, right? It's things like staying late to show somebody what to do. It's things like when something does actually break, when something goes wrong, instead of yelling and screaming and taking over, you say, try again. When the overwhelming pressures are not on them, the overwhelming pressures are on us. At the end of the day, great leaders are not responsible for the job. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. They're not even responsible for the results. I love talking to CEOs and say, what's your priority? And they put their hands on their hips all proud and say, my priority is my customer. I'm like, really? You haven't talked to a customer in 15 years. Mm-hmm. There's no CEO on the planet responsible for the customer. They're just not. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the people who are responsible for the customer.
Okay, so what did you guys think of that?
Yeah, unmute yourselves. We'll have a little conversation.
Yes.
I liked it.
Did you like it? You guys, he is great. He has great material. So do that as homework, is to look up some of his videos.
Anything?
I thought it was very interesting that he said that micromanagers are someone who tends to be that they did the job themselves and they know they can do it better. And I would have to say I was probably very guilty of that in my career many a times, because it's especially when you start your own company and you did it from the ground up. Absolutely. It's really hard, and I would think that'd be so annoying for the people that worked with me.
You know,
well, sometimes it's a comfort zone thing, right? I was really good at it when I did it. That's why they made me the manager, right?
Right.
Well, you know, I want to tell you, Pete and I coach a company we do to this day 11 years ago, Trish, to your point, and it was a heating and cooling company, and the husband, so we had just been engaged in the coaching, and the husband dies tragically. It was awful. Out of nowhere, he dies, and his wife inherits the business. Julie inherits the business. Julie didn't know how to install. She didn't know how to service. She was like
none of the technical.
She didn't know any of the technical. She was into the marketing, but that was about it. And she had to take over this company. And guess what happened to the company? It went through the roof, actually. Oh. Do you know why it went through? Of course. Because she worked on the business, not installing, not doing the service, not doing the stuff in the business. She led the business. And she only concentrated on leading it, not doing it. And when he said that, Trish, I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah,
I did, because there's always, because one of the first times I don't know if anybody from Boa Builders is on this call, but I found it very interesting when I met Josh Baker and Larry, that neither one of them had any remodeling experience. They were business. They both graduated from college, had a business degree, and said, what business should we start? And the economy at that time, remodeling was the direction they went. So they were a great lesson for me, that they happened to be owners of a remodeling company, not the remodeler who started the remodeling company. And I learned a lot from them. Right. Getting outside the business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the other great thing I liked about what Simon said is that, it sounds funny.
I know that sound that Simon says.
Is that you're not responsible for the results anymore directly. You're responsible for the people who get the results. So it's really, you flip the org chart over and you're there to serve other people. And you're serving your employees or your direct reports or your managers or your carpenters, whatever your role is. You're taking care of those folks. Make sure they have the tools and the training and the knowledge, and they get the equipment delivered when they need it, and all those things to make sure that they're as productive as possible. And a lot of that is about them personally too. You've got to know them well enough to take care of them.
That's so true. And so what we want you to do now is, oh wait, you know what, I'm going to take off my,
Oh, you're back now.
hold on, I'll take off my
Taking
background
off
so
the
you
background.
can see. Okay, so I want you to do a triangle. And in the triangle, we want to do S, K, and A. All right, S, K, and A.
What we're going to ask you is to, and you could just tell us, you don't have to write them down, but you can if you want to, is to jot down and tell us, all of us, what are the attributes of a great leader? From your perspective, who do you think is a great leader, and what are some of the things that he or she does? Characteristics, attributes. It could be talking about yourself. It could be the leader of your company. It could be your favorite football team.
And shout them out as you're writing them down.
Honest.
Honest. Okay, keep going,
Awesome.
guys. Everybody has one. How's
Thank
that?
you.
Patience.
Patient.
Patient.
Okay.
Empathetic.
Say again.
Empathetic.
Empathetic. Shows empathy. Okay. Awesome.
How about two more?
Selena?
I was going to say passion.
Action.
Passion. Okay, great. Yeah.
Ed, these guys might, they're
Knowledgeable.
knowledgeable.
Awesome.
Okay. Let's get two more. Tom, are you on?
Or Darren?
Yep, communicator.
Communicator.
Yeah,
Okay.
great. Darren?
Great listener.
Great listener. Okay, so
great.
let's stop there. Here, Pete, I've got, you want to go through what we have?
Yeah, so what we do this with large groups, sometimes 100 people, and we'll get all these things up on the whiteboard, right? All these attributes, and you've got honest, patient, empathy, shows empathy, passionate, knowledgeable, great communicator, great listener. We could go on and on and on. And what we do is then say, okay, Peg put up that triangle. We ask you, of all these attributes, which one's a skill, which one is a knowledge-based thing, and which one is about attitude?
And so, and it can be one or two things. So we want you guys to
It could be more than one of those.
yes, it could be more than one. So if you're looking at honest, what is that? Which does it go under?
Skill.
Joe, anything else?
Can you repeat the K and the A? I'm sorry.
Knowledge and attitude.
Knowledge and attitude.
Knowledge and attitude.
So to be honest, is that a skill you learn?
Kind of in you, it's your value.
It's your value. So it might be your attitude too, right? Okay.
Patient?
I would say you have to learn patience.
I think that everybody probably understands exactly what you're talking about.
People that are just like my mother is one of them. She's incredibly patient. None of us got it from her, but she's
None of you.
incredibly.
We have to learn.
Okay.
So we'll put that as a skill. How's that, Rita?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what about empathy?
I think it's attitude.
Attitude. Okay. Passion.
Attitude.
And here's the trick one.
Attitude.
Attitude.
Knowledge.
Well, knowledge.
Knowledgeable.
Good.
Communicator.
Skill.
Skill and attitude. Okay. And great listener.
Skill.
Skill.
Okay, so as we were writing down, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Of the 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. The majority of them were what? Attitude. We had 1, 2, 3, 4 that were skill and 1 that was knowledge. So isn't that interesting?
And it's always the same, whether we have 20 of these or 50 of them, 70 or 80% of them are attitude based.
Right.
It's about the mindset. So we want to be able to come into work in the morning if we're a manager, a leader, or a business owner with a great attitude to the extent possible. Right?
And so what your homework is, because we always like to give action steps in order for the application to really meet the result, is we want you to pick some characteristics. And Rita, I'm not saying patience is yours, but it might be. You pick.
It's obvious.
You pick what's great for you, and then your homework is to make sure that you're working on that one characteristic. And then what we want you to do as a leader is to start looking at every characteristic and tick off some, like, hey, I'm going to really work on patience. And one of the things, patience is a big one for me. I think that's why I giggle, is I actually say I am patient and kind because I love people enough to wait. Because I'm so impatient that I have to say that to myself often. So makes sense? Is that good homework, you guys?
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue to share the presentation. Off. There we go. Simon, you did great. I love you. There we go.
So one of the things he didn't
There are
mention.
two things that
Is it done?
It's done.
I think that great leaders need to have.
It's not letting me. Go ahead.
Is that you're switching all day long, whether you know it or not, between being a leader and a manager. We generally manage projects, things, and stuff, and we lead people. And in order to be a great leader, we've got to have hopefully willing followers. Otherwise, they're not going to follow you. It's got to be voluntary.
Following is voluntary. And we're going to go through the differences between manager and leader. And here's the one thing. Pete and I were in Detroit. We were doing a keynote on this. Oh gosh, I want to say 5 years ago with a bunch of automotive. We were in the automotive city.
People, yeah.
Automotive, and I had one gentleman come up. He was darn mad. He was really angry. I'll never forget it. So much so I'm talking about it 5 years later. And he goes, this is crap. I have to do both. I have to be a manager and I have to be a leader. And so before I say this, the answer is right. You do have moments where you have to manage.
Why was he a man?
I think he was thinking that we were saying you have to be a leader and not a manager.
Oh.
That's not what this is about. It's about recognizing the moments of when I should be a manager and when I should be a leader. And at that moment, what is it my people need from me? That's what you need to figure out, is if you're going to get the most out of people, what person is showing up at that moment, the manager or the leader. So it's both. So as we're going into this, the other thing that Simon said that I want to ask you guys as a question is, how many of you have that training program? Do you know how he said, wait, I just have to see all your faces because it was so funny because I thought of that. How many people, by a show of hands, in their past, or maybe just recently, they got promoted as manager, and part of that was a leadership program in which they learned how to lead? Raise your hand. Okay, yay.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's good.
You work for a great company.
Yes.
I used to work for Starbucks.
Oh,
okay.
So they were really big on leadership.
Yeah. Need you say any
A
more?
lot of our clients take great people that are good at this and put them into a leadership role, managing a bunch of people doing the same thing, whether it's estimating or production, whatever it happens to be. And all of a sudden they've got a bunch of people that are supposed to be doing what they used to do, and they haven't got any formal training about how to lead people.
So we wanted to tell you that's one thing. Now I'm just going to do a shout out because Salim is here and Trisha here. As soon as Salim became production manager, Schroeder did give her a leadership coach, and she had a leadership coach beforehand. So what we want you to encourage is, and we do have a leadership video series that we're going to be talking about later, but whether it's us or other people, make sure you have a program to allow success for your team. I was told I was manager way back before I ran a coaching company, and I never knew. I just was good at sales. So they said, now you're the manager. I mean, how often that happens?
A lot of us have had that experience. And then it's trial and error, right? You just jump in and go, ooh, I shouldn't have said that to them.
I know.
And
exactly.
then you learn.
Whoops. And wait, Pete, what percent, first, Pete, I'll say the answer, but I want you guys to guess. What percent of an investment should you make in time and in money in yourself annually? It's a percent.
Oh,
Anybody want to give a guess?
50.
50. Oh, yeah, that's a good,
Wow,
good
there
guess.
you go. That's, yeah.
Anything else? Any other guesses? Okay.
You'd be in the top tier of people in the United States
Yeah.
if you spent 10% of your time or your income on developing yourself. If you do 10%, you're in a very rare group. Most people do less than 5%, and the really high performers do in that 10%, maybe a little more range.
Mhm.
But about reading, about going to learn from other people that have been there before, and applying things that you learn from other people, like Simon Sinek, just spending an hour with him, that counts as part of your personal development.
Right. It does. It does. So as we move on, just remember an action step, I'm just going to write this down, is to figure out whether they need a leader or a manager, like understanding that that's your role of what person needs to come out at that moment and what do they need.
And then the second thing would be, what are you doing to invest in yourself? Am I learning something new each week or each month? And just taking a check maybe at the end of the month. How did I do this month with my 160 hours? How much time did I spend on my own development?
And remember, it's an investment. Great leaders, great people have coaches. Great people make investments. They're making that in their time. Pete and I have a book coming out. In fact, at one part of your free gift is going to be one of the chapters in that book.
Leadership.
And it's all about leadership. And it's all the lessons we've learned that really make a difference. And that's huge because the great people are investing their time and their money. So I put, what are you doing to invest in yourself? And the other one is the skills, knowledge, and attitude characteristics. So those are 3 steps that we want you to work on as we move forward. Got it? Okay.
Okay, great. So now we're going to give you 10 points. I believe it's 10, right, Peg?
Well, after this.
Oh, after this, yes. So the next thing is leaders, great leaders, are there to serve their employees. Simon Sinek mentioned in his video, you're there to help other people get the results that your customers, clients, and other people in the business need. And you're there to believe in your people. You're there to encourage your people. You're there to challenge your people, hopefully, and help them grow. I don't mean challenge in a negative way. I mean help them grow and to correct them when they get off the path. And that can be gently. It can be in the way that they need it. And everybody's a little different. The DISC profile we talked about earlier, you may be able to be more direct with one employee when you correct them than with someone else. You may need to be a little calmer, a little gentler. And these are some things that great coaches do.
Right. And so as you're going through, again, we want to go through each one of these points and talk about the good and the bad for each one. And there are 10 different points that we're going to review today, or 10 different differences between a manager and a leader. Some of the things that we're going to share with you is that a person might have used a management style that affected the outcome when they should have used a leadership approach, I should say, And think of it, a leader develops a tribe. Think of it that way, just a leader.
And ask questions. Stop us and ask questions as we go.
For sure. Yeah, there's no reason to put it in the chat button, just ask it. Okay, so Pete, first essence.
So stability. Manager is making sure that things are done according to procedure, and that's how we do things. And a leader maybe, and one example is we have a client here in Columbus, George, who when the pandemic hit, out of all our 35 plus clients, his and his team were the fastest to roll out their safety procedures and communicate with their customers about how they were handling this virus when they were in people's homes, because it was important. They had active projects going on, and they communicated very quickly with everybody involved.
Okay, so here's an example of when we have a client, and this was a few years ago, that so there's a bunch of partners. They have multiple partners, and what happened is they decided as they grew that they were ready for a new position, that they needed somebody to come in and really be a CFO. And at the time, they were really looking over the books themselves, and they realized they were getting too big. Now, what happened is one of the partners, we'll call him Sam, he became a manager because guess what? He was the one that Simon said, like, he does the work, and he didn't want to give it up. And then the other leaders, which wanted change, said, no, we need to grow. And they actually got in. It was quite a standoff that the one guy, Sam, was still trying to manage the business where everybody else was leading it, looking to the future, understanding a change needed to be made. And Sam was holding back the business because he was just thinking so short-sighted and again, of doing it versus what needed to be done. So that's
The job had
sometimes
outgrown him.
the job had outgrown him and he didn't recognize it and he didn't act fast enough. So that's why, that's where, a leader needed to lead versus manage.
He wanted to keep everything the same. And
Yeah.
It wasn't possible anymore.
No. So do you want to hear the end result of what happened? So they ended up hiring a person and Sam wasn't very happy. So there was a little disgruntled, but they brought in this person who was the CFO and he has been the best hire they ever had. And in fact, he's been so great. They're talking about making him a partner in the firm. It's an architectural firm. So it really worked out well.
Success.
It's a real success. So, and then John realized that he had made an error, or Sam, sorry. And realized he had made an error. Yeah, John Sam. Any questions, guys, on this? Okay. All right.
So difference two, number two, manager makes the rules, make sure there's a rule for everything. And a leader may look at things and go, you know what? Our results aren't keeping up with our customers. And they'll break some rules. They'll change some things in order to streamline things.
We get a lot of pushback on this where people are like, well, wait a minute, a leader breaks the rules after we've already created it. And isn't the team mirroring what the leader does? So if the leader breaks the rules, isn't that just making it hard for everybody else? That is something we get a lot. So give the example of James breaking the rules.
Well, and we say break the rules. What this example is one where they had finished a remodeling project. James makes a habit of not visiting every single job that's completed, but he went to the particular job. He looked at the job and the stairs that led into this new exterior remodel job were not up to his standards, and he decided to change them. Even though they met the specs of the job, it met the bare minimum, but it wasn't the kind of finish that he really wanted. So he made them change the stairway, and the customer was thrilled. But it wasn't something that had to be done, but it was, we're going to go above and beyond. We're going to make sure that we thrill this customer, not just satisfy things, and make sure that we feel really proud of it and treat it as if it was somebody in our family that we're doing this for.
Okay, so that's a good one. Okay, am I always doing the bad story?
Yes,
So
that's
here's
how
the
it
bad
works.
story. So here's the bad story of when this didn't work out well. So we were working with a construction company, and the rules were really tight. We knew what businesses we were going to bid for, what we were going to go after. We had created in our coaching program, like what was the parameters in which we were going to do business, which was great. So when you had the opportunity, everybody would come to the table and then everybody would vote based on, these parameters we set up. But we had one of the people that came to the table and they constantly broke the rules of what we had set already. So in other words, they'd say, yeah, but this is different because of this. Oh, but this is different because of this. Now this is the leader. And what happened in this case is they weren't just breaking the rules. They were actually defying and going against the rules. And it actually fractured the team because they were getting so frustrated with her and so frustrated with the situation that it didn't work very well. So I think there's a line in which, the leader breaks the rules in the case that it serves well, but not consistently. And that can really hurt the team.
The other thing to think about with this particular one is that as a leader of or owner of a business, sometimes you have to look at how things are done in a certain part of the business and the results that come from that, and just take a look at it and say, are we doing it a way that we would do it today, or are we doing how we did 5 years ago? And maybe we need to remove a step, streamline a step, or make some changes.
On that, just a little tidbit. We were with a team on Monday and we got to see them in person, which was really super fun because we don't do that very often. But we did ask that of their systems. We asked that question. We go through your systems just a little. If you think this would be a good action step and it applies to you, go through your systems now, write them down and ask that question right now. Number one, is it still, and are people following it? So we have a system, are people following it, and should it exist today? Just to do a system checkup. We did that and we started laughing because we were like, oh God, we stopped doing that. Why? Well, there's no reason we should continue to do that. So a system checkup and doing it in that way, we had fun. We did it over lunch and we just had a lot of fun with it. And at the same time, we came up with some really great things that we needed to do to make sure we kept doing it. Okay, ready? Any questions on the rules? Okay.
Number 3.
Don't you like that?
Yeah. So, that's a good one. Did you do that? You created that?
I
That's
created.
really good. So this one, the example here is we work with a company, a larger company that wanted to grow very rapidly. And we had a manager, and this person was actually the president of the company at the time. Peg was coaching some managers within the company. I was coaching some managers within the company. I was actually working with the president. And it became apparent after a matter of weeks, like 6 to 8 weeks, we went back to the owner of the company and said, look, this individual that you have running this company is not the type of leader that you want to have in place to double. It was more than 2.5 times the size he wanted to get from less than 20 million to 50 million in a certain number of years. And he's done it now, but he's doing it now without the leader that we were coaching. Peg and I actually let him know that this gentleman is not the one that's going to set the direction and get you moving fast enough to get where you need to go. And he needed a leader versus someone that was able to do the technical side of the business. And he was quite good on the numbers, but he wasn't one to set a high bar to get direction moved fast enough to get done what needed to get done.
He wasn't able to set the direction. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about how Schroeder does it, because I think they've just done an outstanding job. And have you guys ever heard of the book Traction? Raise your hand if you know the book Traction. Tractions is a really good book. We coached the book Traction, and we have a lot of our clients are following that process, which Schroeder has. And they've just done a really good job of making sure that the two leaders, you need to have managers who will execute things and do details. You also would have a leader that sets the direction. And in Traction, they talk about how there's a implementer and then there's a visionary, and that can be two different people. And I really think it works so well. Salima, do you agree how great it works between Andrew and Mark? They just complement.
Absolutely agree. The dynamic works perfectly where you have one who's more of a visionary and the other person who's more of the day-to-day managing of things. I think it works really well.
Oh, thank you. And it's great because you do need both. Now, if you're not a company that is in a situation, let's say we're still growing and we don't have a situation where we can do both, then find someone that can help you. So if you're a leader who sets direction, you do need to have that balance of that manager that gets stuff done. So making sure that as we grow our org chart, that when we're picking people and solutions that we're managing, who can be a great manager and who is a great leader will be important. Thanks, Salima. Salima, you're both. You're a leader and a manager.
Depends on the day.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. Awesome. Okay, Pete, the culture.
So the culture, this one, really the leader's job is to shape what the culture is like. What does it feel like to work here? And how do our customers feel when they deal with our employees? Hopefully those are the same feelings. How I treat an employee versus how that employee treats a customer. Everybody's feeling the same type of attention and the same type of care, and the same type of inner feeling.
Well, and I want to talk about culture for a minute. Pete and I and Michelle and Julie have coached a lot of companies. We coach a lot of companies. And culture is the difference of success and not. It's the difference of us having truly great, successful companies. Because when you have a great culture, you're going to see people want to flock to you.
It's a competitive advantage, especially now. I bet all of you guys have trouble finding the right person. They're in short supply, and we want to have a culture that's so good that when people are talking about their work, that other people that are hearing that want to come and work for you.
Because your company's going to grow and do well because of your people. Remember, as a leader, you are the one that is leading people to taking care of people that will take care of your stuff. You need people to be able to execute, managers to attract you, and having a great culture and shaping that is essential. Defining it too, and then living up to it is very critical to the culture. And I want to say, Pete and I, we've been fortunate to work with great companies, and both of we've had 2 companies back to back win culture, company with the best culture in North America. Right. And guess what happens when you have a great culture? Guess what happens to your profits? They go up.
People stay. Good people stay.
Good people stay.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want, we talk about engagement. If you want great engagement and retention, it's great culture too. And leaders shape it, and managers make sure they're executing it. So it's both.
Good.
Any questions on that? Okay. Conflict.
So conflict. Great leaders figure out well, we had a problem between estimating and production. We had a problem between a customer and the guys in the field, the folks in the field. How do we take this? What can we learn from it? How can we get even better because of this? And figure out how to take that and make the company better. How can we thrill a customer when we have an event that we didn't like and we want to get better at it? And great leaders step into those things and help the company grow.
And so I'm going to tell you a story that happened last week with a company that we coach. We've been coaching them for years, and we were working with the team. And this was one I got to go in person a couple weeks ago. It's a couple hours away, but when we started coaching them and we started coaching the team, the number one thing that the team got upset over, and you've got to think about this as a leader and a manager, is when we go in, consistency of leadership is really critical. Consistency is so important. And what we're saying about that is, if somebody is not doing their job and falling down on the job, it is so critically important that you as a leader use that as an opportunity. Don't avoid the conversations and don't allow it, and hold them accountable. So when we were working with this team a couple years ago, we did a survey and they said, we just want everybody to be held accountable consistently. And the manager, and I call him a manager because he was avoiding that conflict. He was making excuses for his team. And this is a corporation that we were working with, and he ended up losing his job because guess what happened? They started losing clients. They started losing people. They weren't growing the office because people were upset that conflict was being avoided. And so I want you to really look in at what, and this will be a piece of homework, what conversations or conflicts do you know you have to have that you haven't had? Because that's probably one, as a leader, one of your biggest critical, I would say, talents, skills, attitude, all of it, is you need to be able to handle that conflict.
Well, and to be comfortable enough to say this is an opportunity, not a problem, and learn about how it developed. What are the facts? Try to figure out what really happened versus the emotional side of what things happen, and step into it and figure out what really happened. How can we learn from this and make our company even better?
Right. Yes. So, any questions about conflict? This is usually a tough one. Okay, direction.
Yeah, so figuring out how can you innovate. One example that we have is we've got a client that periodically during their, they do it once a month, they have a meeting with the staff just to talk about what can we do better. What are some things that we've thought we might want to do or we could do that some other industry leaders are thinking about, and how could we innovate, and have a monthly, just a meeting to talk about how could we innovate.
Well, so here is one thing we want to tell you, this innovation. So in your business, when you want to grow, and we're working with our customers on this, is we want to grow horizontally. Okay, so as we're growing our business, think about horizontal growth. So what other services that we can offer to our existing target market? Because if we've done a great job with our customer service and our execution, we have a really loyal base. So what else is it that they need that we can offer? So we work with an architecture company, and one of the things they did is they started adding on video services. And you think, Peg, why would they do video services?
Well, they do interior design work, and that came out as a natural complement to that business.
Because they also did, oh gosh, I'm going to say
to
it
shape
wrong.
the environment
Yes,
that people work in.
Yes, they do. They come in the interior, they do interior like lettering. I forget.
They call it experiential design.
Experiential. Have you
So
guys ever
when
heard
you-
of that before?
When you walk through somebody's office, just by what you see and the colors and the feeling that you get, you know what it's like to work there.
So they added that on because it was a compliment and an offering that they could get. So it's interesting because they're looking for their next president, and they're looking at different partners. And it was interesting because it was one of the partners that created this new road to go down, which, guess what? In a pandemic, it's great to have different product offering because it makes you more stable. The more product offerings we have, the more stability we'll have because we have other places to go. And having that vision of what other roads we can go down is really important for you. And instead of just saying that we want it the same.
Well, the other thing with having a diverse product or service offerings is that you're all of us are rejecting some clients for things that we don't currently do.
Right.
So you've got a stream of income that's going to somebody else.
Right.
And you're capturing some of that.
So this is one thing. Okay. I've said this before a million times. How many times are you getting leads in and giving them off to referrals? And if you're a business that's been around for a while, that's probably the number could be 50% of my leads come in, I have to give them away. Start measuring who you're sending them away to, and then know that that will be an opportunity to go down a new road for you. Okay. All right. So Simon said this. I loved it when he said, listen, leaders, it's tough. It's tough. It's not going to be easy because you have to give all the credit and take all the blame. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
And
when you give credit to someone, and I think we mentioned this earlier, is that if you give positive, specific, and timely feedback and let somebody know that, hey, that estimate you got in was just in time. We won the job because we got back to them quickly. And that person knows what the result of what they did was for the company, what that result is. It's going to encourage them to keep doing it.
Well, and so here is your action step on this one, taking credit, is what reward system do you have in place right now? And here's a second tier of it. Is it a reward system that your team likes? Is that what they want?
And it could be the very simplest one is just a thank you.
Right.
And it could be things and stuff as well. Hey, I brought you a coffee because you saved me yesterday.
Yes, you were in our first one. They're either goldfish or puppies or kittens or canaries. We talked about that in our first session. Okay, good. All right. So now the decision, making sure that as you're looking at decisions, and what we mean by the leader facilitating it is getting the buy-in. And a truly great leader has the ability to get people to follow them voluntarily and do it with a big smile on their face because they feel like it's their idea.
The other thing to throw in there, Peg, is that we would like, hopefully, is to make decisions at the lowest level possible. If we've got a customer that has an issue and somebody's out in the field with that customer and they can make a decision that makes that customer happy and takes care of the situation so we can move on, just do it.
Right.
Because if you delay it, it's going to cause a problem. And if we fix it quickly, we can get on to other better things.
And again, we're not saying that a manager making the decision is bad. It's just we also need to have buy-in. And there are some times when you have to make the decision.
The other watch out is if you're a manager and you make all the decisions or the business owner, how's that going to do with your growth? You can't triple and make all the decisions. You're going to have to work 100 hours a week.
Right. And I know there's some things that you say, well, I can just be in the meeting too. No, you do need to allow your people to grow, to make a mistake and be okay with it so that they learn from there. Okay. Vision. I used to say this. We have a client that we had a manager who just kept telling people their vision instead of selling it and getting them on board. It was a fractured team. And then we started working with the manager and he really started getting it that it's not about me doing top down. It's about me really selling the whole idea of where we're going. And so it worked. It was a big difference. Here's the one thing I want to talk about vision is how often have you here's you can do a vision reset. Have you reset it? Number 2, have you communicated to your team not only what your vision is, but why you have it? The why is just as important as the vision that you're telling them. Because, and I'll tell you, you learn the best examples are the ones where you fail. So I was up in a team meeting one time and we were talking about why we were growing. Like we were saying, oh, we're growing here and here. And the team was like, I'm exhausted with this growth. Why does it matter to me? And we realized that we were so excited with the vision of where we were going that we didn't sell the team on it and understand the benefit to them. And slowing down enough to not only listen to what their needs are, but to explain the benefit of it is so important as you're growing in your business. And
one of our local companies here has figured out that growing rapidly, and I mean rapidly meaning 10 to 20%, closer to 20% every year, is that the people that are their best employees are continuing to learn and get better at their jobs and be able to take on more responsibility without having to leave the company to get more responsibility. They can stay there
That's why
and
you
take
grow.
on more. And
That's
that's one good reason to grow.
That's one really good reason to grow, is because you got great people. They'll never want to leave you if they have the opportunity. So in letting them know what that opportunity is and how it benefits them is really an important part of this whole vision. Okay, and then the last one, Pete, style.
So managers, obviously transactional. How do we close this deal? How do we get this project done on time? How do we deliver the materials to the site on time? And the leaders about, well, what do we need to do differently 12 months from now or 2 years from now that will be able to serve our customers even better? Or what needs are unmet by our customers? Or can we look at different place for employees? Is there a new source for employees? Can we take people right out of high school and teach them? What is it we can do that will actually transform our business?
And constantly be thinking that. So in essence, and I think we've said this, nobody is 100% manager and leader. There's a little bit of give and take, but thinking of it as a manager is a position that you are in, and a leader you can lead from anywhere.
You don't have to have a title.
You don't have to have a title. So with that, we talked about the free gift. Here you go, guys. You can put your phone up to this and get the QR code, or you can put in the website free gift from yourcoach.com. And on that, we talked about our leadership book coming out. You can get a chapter of our leadership book. Yay. We also have a great video. We have a leadership video series that we're doing, and you can get a glimpse of one of our videos that I think it's one that Pete does a wonderful, and it's about 3 minutes. You can have that. And then we also have a complimentary coaching session in there for you to sign up with 1 hour with Pete or I for you or your team. So feel free to do that. You can call us, look at that. And with that, do you have any questions?
Oh, I like the last slide. That's
Do you like that?
Yeah. That is big.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Peg. I've had a similar training sometime in the past. I was approached very differently, so this was super helpful today. Thank you for that. And in that previous training, the coach had said something like, there's a percentage of time you should spend leading versus a percentage of time you should spend managing daily. Is that accurate? And what would that percentage be?
Oh, that's good. Great question.
I think that's situational, Salim. I think there are specific times, like there's a fire in the building, you're going to manage everybody getting out, right? And I think you've got to just look at the situation and figure out, what does this situation need? Is this something I should just be observing and learning from myself and seeing whether or not our processes are working right, and then making a leadership change? Or is it something I need to get involved in?
I really like I do think it's situational. One thing that I'm sort of equating it to, if you own a business, we talk about working on your business. And I think of leading as that you're working on it versus in it as a manager. And we say rule of thumb that you want to be working on your business 10 to 20%, which would be leading it and visionary. And then the rest is execution of management. So I don't know if that answers your question or not.
The other thing I'd suggest is there's a really good article on situational leadership, because that's a whole topic in itself. But there's a great Harvard Business Review article related to that might give you a little insight into that too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to see you. Anybody else have any questions? No? Well, I really like the intimate setting. This was wonderful. I think we were able to talk a little bit more. Thank you guys so much. And I think we have 1 more minute. So you know one thing, Salima, I always like to end and start on time, right? We always like to do that. You guys are busy. We understand. Hey, thank you so much. We appreciate it. You guys.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Peg. Thank you, Pete.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Tom.
Let's see here. All right, we have one final thing, we have another message from our final sponsor here.
Every day can bring changes, challenges, and Every day can bring changes, challenges, and opportunities that can also change your personal or business financial goals and priorities. A true partner can make it all a bit easier. Someone who really listens, understands, and then creates solutions in hard times and good times. Sandy Spring Bank will always strive to be your advocate. Today, tomorrow, and every day. That's real banking for real life and real business. Sandy Spring Bank.
Okay, so also just want to remind everybody about tomorrow's sessions starting at noon. We'll start back up with more great topics tomorrow. So we've got Thomas Grossman on subcontract agreements, terms you need to know in the business management. Ken Clark's doing a session on large doors. And then we've got a session on change orders, lose money, make money, or you choose. I think that's with Tim Fowler. So a lot more great content coming tomorrow as well. So we look forward to that. With that, I appreciate everyone taking the time again today. Have a good night.